Hello all and welcome to Astro Wheel of Fortune. My name is Vlada and I read tarot, and today I'm doing a reading on how are your guides trying to communicate with you currently, and we're also going to look at what they're trying to communicate to you, so maybe a message, but I'm mostly interested in focusing on the how, and the what kind of will come after, and we'll see in what way, but the how is more important here. So if you want to pause the video to look over the 4 piles that I have here, we've got groups. We've got group 1 with citrine, we've got group 2 with red carnelian, we've got group 3 with black onyx, and we got group 4 with rose quartz. So see which one is calling to you. Maybe it's multiple stones that are calling to you, maybe it's none of them. If it's none of them, just feel free to click out of this video, as the messages in this may not be for you. But if you are attracted to one of these stones, I'll see you at your pile. So let's get started. So we're going to get started with group number 1, which is the citrine pile. So let's see, how are your guides trying to interact with you right now? What is their way of communicating with you currently? Group 1, how? Okay. Through your daydreams, it seems to me, it doesn't even seem like it's connected to your dreams as in when you sleep. This feels like through your daydreaming. I feel like especially when you get lost or zoned out in a daydream, they try to insert certain messages. So that's very interesting. When you get lost in a daydream, they are trying to come forward with information. I've actually just decided I don't want to do reversals for this one specifically for some reason, so we're just going to go without reversals for this. I don't know why, but I'm just getting a really strong hint to not use reversals for this specific reading. Let me think. So through your daydreams, when you're zoned out in a daydream, that's when they are mostly communicating with you. I feel like whatever you're imagining, group number 1, wherever your imagination takes you, your guides try to insert messages there. Especially if you've been daydreaming about stuff that's kind of unusual lately. If you found yourself daydreaming about things, or maybe you're daydreaming about your normal stuff that you're used to daydreaming about, but you find yourself, it's like you find yourself noticing little details in your daydreams, and you're kind of like, oh, I can't believe I thought of that. I wonder why I thought of that. I wonder why that popped into my head. Your visualizations as well. So like if you're doing any visualization in terms of like if you're meditating and you're trying to do a visualization, I feel like your guides are also popping in there and trying to bring some messages to you. We've got 2 7s here as well right off the bat. So we've got 7 of Swords. It's almost like they're sneaking around your visualizations and imagination. There's a sense of your guides sneaking about and trying to plant very sneakily. I almost feel like your guides like to be a little bit more subtle with their communication. Currently, because we're looking at how they're communicating with you currently. So I feel like currently your guides are more interested in being very subtle. So if you feel like you're not super connected to your guides, for example, maybe you're feeling like, I'm not very connected to my guides. I don't seem to get any messages from them. I'm not seeing as much symbolism from them. That is not true. Your guides are just a lot more subtle. it's almost like they want you to exercise your own imagination before they tell you what to think or how to act. They want you to exercise your free will before they give you too many messages or signs or invoke too much symbolism for you to get distracted with. So currently, in your current energy, in your current state, your guides don't want to be overly communicative. I'm also getting whispers. So for some of you, I don't know if you're hearing whispers during your meditations, or maybe whispers in your dreams, but daydreams are standing out. The idea of something being whispered is really coming through. How are group one's guides communicating with them? Look at that. We've got the High Priestess, subtlety, and we've also got the Hermit. I'm going to take both of them because they fell out together. They also prefer to communicate with you when you're alone. So I feel if you are trying to contact your guides or you're trying to connect with your guides when you're around other people, it's not that your guides won't respond, but they won't respond as effectively as if you're alone. I also feel like your guides are asking you to have specific allocated time to communicate with them, where you sit down and you mindfully connect with them rather than, you're walking down the street and you're thinking like, oh, guides, connect with me. They almost want, it kind of feels like you sitting down to a meeting with your guides. But currently they just prefer to be a little bit more subtle with their symbolism and messaging. That makes me think like you are doing really well in terms of being aligned intuitively. And so they don't want to, because I'm getting your guides are very like, they're doing really well right now. We don't want to disturb their flow. So even if you don't think you're doing well, and I think some of you don't, because there's this level of secrecy here. It kind of feels like someone who's doing really, really well and they have no idea that they're doing very well because their physical reality does not necessarily reflect yet just how well they're doing. But they're in the flow. That's your energy. And your guides are quite protective over this flow that you have going. You're actually, the way that you're adjusting your own life, how you're adjusting your way of living right now, it's something your guides seem to be very pleased with right now. So they're like, we don't want to break up the flow. We don't want to get in there and muddle the waters and give them unnecessary symbolism and give them unnecessary messages. If anything, I feel like this is a group, this is the group that could benefit from like not watching readings. Having a bit of a detox when it comes to readings, when it comes to tarot, when it comes to receiving messaging or symbolism, giving yourself space from that. It's not that you can't come back to it. You can come back to it, but of course you can. But you could do very well with stepping away from it for a little while. Let's see what else. How else are you communicating with group one? I also feel like with the High Priestess and the Hermit, both of these represent deep knowledge. And that makes me feel like whatever you're studying right now, for those of you who are studying something, whether it be officially like in college or school, or whether it be on your own, in your own time, whatever you're studying right now is divinely kind of protected by your guides, or it's something that was, it's like your guides are really protecting that knowledge that you're absorbing right now. And so they communicate with you through this knowledge a lot of the time. So if you're studying something specific, they want you to know that, oh my God, we've got a library. Learn from your past. But look, she's literally studying, she's reading a book. For a lot of you, this could be through like anything you're reading as well. Anything you're reading, anything you're studying. I can't believe that came out, because I was literally, as I was saying studying, I was thinking, or reading in my head. And the library popped out. So lessons, guidance, wisdom. Anything you're reading, anything you're studying, they are also communicating with you through that. Let's get a little bit more information on how they're communicating with you. Shatter. The things that shatter you and break your heart can open your eyes. So they could be communicating with you through an experience where it feels like something is shattering. Maybe you feel like something has shattered recently. An illusion of something has shattered. Again, the High Priestess can talk about illusions and being aware of those delusions. Or illusions, delusions. The High Priestess is aware that what you see in front of you, no matter how tangible it might feel, is not always the true reality. And so I feel like if you feel like something got shattered, like your understanding of the reality of something has shattered recently, that was also a moment for your guides to communicate with you. Maybe you finally saw a person for who they truly are. There was a situation where you saw a person for who they truly are, or not even a person. It could have been some sort of situation that you found yourself in, and you finally saw it for what it was rather than what you thought it was. That was your guides communicating with you. Let's see. I want to pull a self-care card for you as well, for how your guides are communicating with you right now. We've got sweet treat and pleasure. I feel like your guides currently like to communicate with you during moments where you are receiving pleasure, whether it be through food, through, through physical pleasure, sexual pleasure, pleasure of dancing, pleasure of singing, the pleasure of good company. Whenever you feel a sense of pleasure, your guides try to communicate with you something. Not to say that you should seek out pleasure just in order to communicate with your guides. I don't think that's something that your guides would like. But in moments of pleasure, they like to connect with you. But let's try and sum this up a little bit. So how are your guides? I think the pleasure of daydreaming and pleasure of getting lost in a good book as well. That's something that I'm picking up on. But let's try and summarize this for you. So how are your guides interacting with you? How are they communicating with you right now? They prefer to communicate with you in a more subtle, behind the scenes, delicate kind of way. There's a lot of delicate energy here with you, group one, and the energy is very much like group one is in a great energy, in a great flow right now. Certain illusions have been shattered. Things that they thought were real are revealing themselves not to be real. Group one are learning a lot right now. They're absorbing a lot of information. Anything that they're studying right now, any wisdom or any wisdom that they're receiving, any research that they're doing, we are constantly communicating through that. And some of the research, some of the books that group one has picked up, we put those books in their path in order to have an easier access to communicate with group one. Any books that they've recently read, we were trying to get them to read. We were sending that energy to them. we connect with group one when they're lost in a good book, when they're lost in the pleasure of daydreaming, when they're zoned out and they're experiencing visualizations of a beautiful life that they want to see ahead in the future. Any sort of pleasurable activity that group one does, we are right there, and we like to heighten that feeling of pleasure or heighten that feeling of enjoyment when group one is enjoying like a good company, a good meal, a great conversation. But your guides definitely want to highlight that they are trying to be as subtle as possible. And so don't worry if you feel like you're disconnected from them, like you're not, don't be thinking that your spiritual abilities or your intuitive skills are not sharpened or are not up to par. They absolutely are. You're just in a flow right now, and they don't want to like overly startle you or overly shock you with like profound spiritual experiences right now. They just want you to continue being in your flow, continue learning what you're learning. I feel like especially the part about learning something new, collecting wisdom and knowledge, they want you to keep doing that. Continue. And I feel like the daydreaming part, it's almost like, I wonder if some of you feel bad for daydreaming or you feel like it's a waste of time, but your guides are really saying like it's not a waste of time at all. It's actually a great process where you get to reconnect with your consciousness, your higher self, and your guides, and you don't even realize it. And you shouldn't lose that. Some of you maybe feel like daydreaming is something like, oh, children do that and I shouldn't do that so much. I get lost in my thoughts. Like, it's so useless. I should be more, I should be doing more work or whatever. And your guides are saying, don't forget about your practical reality, of course, and be very mindful of being grounded in your practical reality, but never lose the skill that you have. You're an expert daydreamer, and being an expert daydreamer is a rare skill to have these days, and you've got it to a T. So don't lose that daydreaming ability that you have, because it's not just, it also has a spiritual and intuitive skill set to it. It's not just, a thing that children do, and also children are massively spiritual and intuitive. So it's not just like a childish thing that you're doing. It's something that is genuinely improving your life. Oh wow, yeah. And that's how they communicate with you. So that's what we got for you, group number one. If you like this video, do like, subscribe, and comment, especially with your feedback if you feel like sharing. If you'd like to see more videos by me, more readings like that by me, check out my Patreon. I have the link to it in the description box below. You can also get a private reading with me on my Etsy, and a link to that is down below as well. So I'm going to move on. So that was really cool, but we're going to move on to group number 2, which is the red carnelian. So we're going to look into group number 2 and how are your guides communicating with you, group 2? So we're focusing on the how. We'll see if any messages do come through, but we want to focus on the how. So how, I'm also not reading reversals for this specific reading, so we're going to be doing all the cards upright. So how are your guides interacting with you, group 2? So we've got the Queen of Swords. Your guides like to be quite straightforward with you, I think, group 2. Like, despite it being like such a mystical experience to connect to your guides, and psychic energy, intuitive energy, being so mystical, your guides like to cut to the chase. So maybe you find when you're asking for an answer to a question, you might say, what do I do, guides? And the next time you see, like literally next moment, you see like a sign that says, for some reason I heard get over it. So I don't know. Your guides might be very blunt, group 2. Your guides don't like to be too flowery or too poetic in the way that they express themselves. They like to get to the point. They're like, this shit is confusing as it is. Let us be very clear. So your guys are very like, you know, spirituality and spirit guides connecting to the human world is already so complex. Let's just get the message out and cut to the chase. So that's funny. Your guides are very funny. But they're funny in this like very cut and dry way. Like they don't mean to be funny. But there's a funny energy to how blunt they are. So there's definitely a bluntness to how they like to deliver messages. I also feel like your guides tend to stay quite close to you. Like they tend to, at least a couple of guides are always around you. They're always quite close to you. You've got the Judgment card. They like to be loud and clear, that's for sure. I'm also hearing when you are being judged by other people, that is that is us letting you know that those people are not for you. So it's kind of like, you know, that thing of like rejection is protection. Your guides believe in that quite a bit. And that might make life a little bit more difficult for you as a person. But your guides really like using that system of, if the person's not right for you, they're going to reject you. Rejection is protection. Your guides they're like, we've no time. You've got a lot of work to do. That's what it feels like with you, group 2. Your guides are very like, you have a lot of work to do. I also feel like your guides are under the impression that you have, well, not under the impression, but how they feel is that you have a really important purpose in life. And you've got some, and I don't want you to feel kind of like anxious or worried about it. It's just they see you as a human. They see you as someone who is meant to achieve make some sort of a point in this lifetime. That's almost what I'm getting. That you're meant to, by the end of your lifetime, again, like don't get worried about this, that, you know, if you feel like you're not living your purpose or anything like that. And again, sometimes I believe that, honestly, a lot of us think, oh, I'm not living my purpose. And I honestly believe that by the end of our life, we'll see what our purpose is or was or what it was meant to be. And you might be someone who does absolutely nothing all your life. And you're under the impression that you've done absolutely nothing. And you've had the most average life ever. And then looking back on your life, you know, whatever age you are, you'll turn around and go, oh no, I can actually pinpoint the exact purpose that this life that I thought I did nothing in has had and the impact that I have made. So, but I feel like your guides are, the way that they see you is you're someone who's meant to make quite an impact on the world, on the people surrounding you. You're meant to be a very impactful character. And so they're like, we've no time, like wasting time with, you know, people who are not gonna, not that they help you along this purpose, it's more like contribute to this purpose. And also definitely don't have time to be dealing with people who will take away or diminish this purpose. So again, rejection is protection. Your guides are in a very big belief about that. So if you're feeling rejected, especially right now, I feel like that's maybe why your guides are highlighting that to me. If you're feeling especially rejected right now, wherever you are, that's because whoever rejected you, they're not supposed to be. Not that they're not supposed to be in your life, but there's a certain level of protection from that person. So maybe they're not meant to play as big a role in your life as you thought. They're not meant to be... Another thing that I'm getting is that when you start putting someone before you, your guides arrange some sort of a rejection. So that person can reject you so you can move on and continue on your purpose. Your guides are very cut and dry. They don't like wasting time. I wonder if you're ruled by Saturn, group 2. We've got the Knight of Cups. That's so funny. Your guides are interesting. Your guides are interesting in such a way where they are very cut and dry, and they can even be quite stern and strict. And again, they won't be invasive in like, oh, like too. They won't be too invasive, but they're not like group one's guides, for example, where their guides were very subtle and they were like, we are not going to intervene. These guides, they like to not necessarily intervene, but they will make clearer moves and they will make clearer statements. They will not. I feel like you're usually the person like. I can always tell, especially when I'm doing private readings, whose guides are being gentle and not that the guides would sugarcoat or anything like that, but there's almost a language difference in how I read for different people. And you can always tell when someone's guides are just like, let's just here, A, B, and C, let's just get it out on the table and get it over with. And then there's other people's guides who will be like, a lot more poetic and a lot more mystical in the way that they describe things. And then other people's guides are a little bit more humorous, and you know, there will be a lot of quips coming out of my mouth all of a sudden. With you, your guides are very like A, B, and C, let's get to the point. But then once you ascend, or when like you elevate, or once you get to some sort of it's like they get gentle with you all of a sudden. So what I'm feeling is that your guides are trying to evoke that if you feel like they're being a bit tough on you right now, you're right. They are being a bit tough with you right now. Your guides are being a bit, they're showing you a bit of tough love. But the feeling that I'm getting is that your guides are saying, look, once you're done with this lesson, we promise, once you go through this transformation, we're going to get softer on you. And we're going to make sure that, you know, we're going to give you some like really beautiful, relaxed messages. And we're going to give you some really like easy experiences. Like, and it's not that they're solely, they're not solely responsible for the experiences that you have. But there is that kind of like feeling of, look, please just get through this lesson. We're by your side. We're protecting you like crazy. Not that you even need protection, but we're protecting you. But don't worry, like this is not forever. That's almost the feeling that I'm getting. Your guys are like, at some point when this lesson is learned, we know you feel rejected, but like, look, these people, they're not as big of a character in your life as you thought. So, and I'm hearing sorry about it. Like, it's quite a tough energy. But they don't mind being soft. It's not like they're constantly stern. It's just that their softness. But I'm getting like when they're soft, it's like when they're sweet, they're really sweet. So right now, I feel like you're going through a period of more stern energy that they're implementing here. So so let's get more information. How are they communicating with group 2? They could also be communicating to you through mentors or teachers. So I don't know if you've had any mentors or teachers that said something to you and you had like an epiphany. I feel like, but also keep in mind, it doesn't have to be like a mentor or teacher like in school or college. This could be someone who is like a friend, but you recognize them as a mentor to you. Could be a partner for some of you even. Maybe you see your partner as a bit of a mentor. They like to communicate messages through these people. Because don't forget, we can be channels for spiritual guidance for each other. A lot of the time, people say things that come to them. And like, I've definitely had those experiences where I was talking to a friend and, you know, we'd be giving each other advice, or we'd be giving each other some guidance. And when there's like and I mean friends, a lot of times this happens with people you truly trust, and there's an open channel between the two of you where you're speaking with a lot of honesty and authenticity, where you're not trying to have a conversation from your ego, or, you know, it's rare that these kind of like profound messages would come through a friend that, you know, you've got like some weird energy with, or, you know, someone in your community who, you know, there's some strange ego shit going on between the two of you. Who it will come through with is people that you have an open channel with. And that's where spiritual energy feels comfortable in coming through. So that feels like that whoever you're getting messages, or your guides are choosing those types of people for you in order to give you spiritual guidance here. So whoever you can think of where you have an open channel with. Okay. How are you communicating with group 2? Treehouse. Find peace in being alone, solitude, introspection, and independence. Another group where your guides prefer to communicate with you when you're alone. They will communicate through friends that you have an open channel with, or people who you have an open channel with, a partner that you have an open channel with, but they prefer to communicate with you when you're alone. They also prefer to communicate with you when you're not in states of high anxiety. So I feel like that's where it's very helpful for you to look at, you know, the way sometimes people say, I don't know if this is intuition or if it's anxiety. If you're ever doubting whether something is intuition or anxiety, your guides are like, yep, that's not us. Because we're only going to come through when you're completely peaceful, by the way. So that's almost like a cheat code for you. Your guides are like, the only time our, intuition will strike you is when you are not doubting that it could be anxiety. They're very serious about it. I feel like your guides don't want to stress you out more than you. Like, they're not interested in stressing you out. And it's almost, it might feel counterproductive, but that's why rejection is protection. And they're implementing that technique on you almost. Because even though being rejected by someone may feel stressful or may appear stressful to you, the thing is, what would have been more stressful is having an experience with that person, or having to undergo that type of an experience with that person that rejected you and actually protected you from their own chaos or whatever it is. I feel like a lot of you who picked this group, you're going through some sort of elevation right now. You're about to step into, and I feel like you're coming into the end of it. Because Judgment is the last card in the major, or it's not the last card, it's the second last card in the major arcana. So it's like you're almost, the world comes after Judgment. So you're almost there. There's like, just, this is the second last. It's the, what is it called in TV shows, and penultimate, or, the way in a lot of shows, TV shows, the second last episode is usually like the most eventful and dramatic, and then they wrap it up at the end in the last episode. It's like you're in the second last episode of your TV show of this, like the season of this life chapter. And after that you're gonna wrap things up, and it's not gonna be as dramatic. Although I don't want to even put that on you. I'm not necessarily seeing that things are dramatic. I'm just seeing that things feel heightened. Because we've got the Judgment, the Treehouse. I feel like a lot of things are feeling very heightened for you right now. Autumn. A period of harvest and abundance. So there could be, your rewards could be coming in autumn, whenever that is for you. Northern or southern hemisphere, depends on that, I guess. But for a lot of you, maybe September, October will be when you'll be receiving a lot of these rewards for going through this transition. But also autumn just makes me think like a period of harvest is coming in soon. You don't have to worry about it so much. But how your guides are communicating. I wonder if your guides also prefer to communicate with you during autumn. So maybe it might even be a little bit more seasonal with you, group two. So they are very blunt and they are very sharp. And it feels like unless they have a very specific message to deliver to you, they don't really bother. They kind of leave you to your own devices. Or unless they feel like it's time to like intervene in some sort of subtle way. But subtle but clear. Like subtle to as in not to shake you too much, but clear to the point where you go, oh, that seems like a sign from my guides, you know. But it really feels like your guides almost prefer to communicate with you during autumn, because I don't know why this card is also giving me very autumnal vibes. Your guides prefer to communicate with you during autumn. For some of you, like maybe you're very connected to Halloween. Maybe you're really connected to maybe you love Halloween and you know that you never knew why, but I feel like maybe it's because your guides are very present during that time. It almost feels seasonal. It's very interesting. Plan a vacation. So plan a holiday, plan a vacation. I feel like, again, it's very interesting. Your guides kind of have instances that they pick to be more vocal with you. So for a lot of you, maybe your guides refrain from being too active. So let me summarize what I'm seeing here. So how do your guides communicate with you? Well, first of all, they communicate with you very sharply and very blunt, in a very blunt fashion, so that the messages can be as clear as possible. They don't like flowery language. They don't like to be overly poetic with their messaging. They like to be very cut and dry. This includes things like rejection is protection. If something is not for you, you're going to receive a rejection around it. If something is and again, sometimes for you it might feel like these rejections are very harsh or very difficult to process. But your guides, they feel like it's the better way of going, because it's almost like when something feels very harsh to you, you tend to walk away from it, and your guides are aware from it, or aware about it. And so that's the technique that they use with you. But at the same time, there's also a place for a more kind of like relaxed and soft communication from your guides. But I feel like that's where they do it only in certain moments. And for a lot of you, they only do that during like autumn time almost, or maybe during your holidays or vacations when you're traveling. So for a lot of you, your traveling is really important to your communication with your guides. Maybe you have like a ninth house stellium or something like that. Maybe you have like your moon, or maybe your Jupiter, or maybe your Pluto in the ninth house for some of you. There's this feeling of having profound spiritual experiences through travel, through exploration. So maybe your that's a hint from your guides. If you want to connect to us more, go travel, go explore the world more. But another way that your guides like to communicate is by having an open channel between you and like friends or partners or people that you have a really trusting channel between. So people who you feel you can talk to in a very vulnerable state without any ego, without any pretense. So almost like the treehouse makes me think like people who you would invite to your treehouse, people who would know the password to your treehouse. That's so those people, when you're having conversations with them or you're asking for advice, a lot of the time what they say to you will come through in a very clear and cohesive in a clear and a cohesive energy. And you may even feel sometimes like, wow, that person just gave me amazing advice. That's your guides kind of come in there in those moments and in those conversations. So that's what I have for you, group number 2. I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you like this reading, do like and subscribe. And definitely leave some feedback if you like this reading. Let me know what you thought if you feel like it. But I'm going to move on. So we're moving on to group number 3. Let's get into it. Group number 3. How are your guides communicating with you? Let's get into it. How are group 3's guides communicating with them? King of Pentacles. Something about this feels like your guides like to communicate with you through... Mostly they like to communicate with you when you're very grounded. I feel like your guides don't like to communicate with you if they feel like you're ungrounded, like you're not connected to your physical reality too much. So they like to make sure that you're truly, truly grounded, either through meditation or whatever it is, before they communicate with you. I also feel like your guides have like almost like a system in the way that they communicate with you. So maybe you notice that they communicate with you like for example, on a full moon, or maybe they always communicate with you on a certain date. Maybe they always communicate with you at a certain time. Like there's that kind of energy. There's almost a system to how they communicate. They like to be, they don't like to be too spontaneous almost with their communication with you, which is really interesting. Maybe it's because they know that that's how you receive communication best from them, when it's almost systematic and how it's presented. Okay, we've also got the Ace of Wands. Your guides also like to communicate with you when you are lost in a passion of yours. So when you're in a passionate space, so maybe when you are being very creative, you're being very passionate about a creative project, you're working away, they like to communicate with you through it. And I even feel like sometimes when you're creating something, they speak through you and through your passionate energy. And it's almost like they communicate through you into your passion projects. There's a lot more, it's kind of like there's something very tangible and physical about how they communicate with you. And something that I'm getting is that, for example, like I'm reading tarot right now and I'm using my voice. Someone might communicate with their guides in their head in meditation or after meditation. With you, it's more mechanical. It's more physical. So I wonder if it's kind of like when you make something, like a meal or a piece of art or a piece of clothing even, or whatever it is. When you make something, when you're getting engaged in a physical kind of way, that's when your guides like to communicate with you. For some of you, it could even be physical activity is when they like to communicate with you. Maybe when you're out on a run or you're doing some sort of rigorous exercise. 9 of Wands. It's almost like your guides like to communicate with you in a way so that you don't feel put on a spot almost when they're communicating with you. I feel like you could be someone who would benefit journaling after you... It's kind of like if you're making a home-cooked meal or something like that. After you have made the meal and ate the meal, go sitting down and journaling. that's almost when your guides can give you the best, because you're grounded in it, right? Because you've just performed some sort of physical exercise. You ate, food grounds you as well. So that's when, if you journaled, you could get a lot of really great messages coming through for yourself. Or like you're someone who could even benefit from maybe journaling after physical exercise. That's almost what I'm getting. That's how your guides seem to like to interact with you. Page of Swords. Your guides actually really, I feel like your guides are quite chatty. I also feel like your guides like to be quite playful with you when it comes to communication. It's not always very serious messaging that you get with your guides. Sometimes it's just playful. Sometimes they just like to drop in and kind of like make a joke with you, or make light of a situation. There's a humorous feeling to this. How do you like to communicate with group 3? Group 3. Headspace. You are overflowing with creativity, creative energy, new ideas, and productivity. They like to communicate with you when you're being productive in your creative energy. So I feel like if you ever feel like you're disconnected from your guides, like you're disconnected from your spiritual team, sit down and do something creative. Sit down and start drawing, start making something, make a meal. Get your whole body involved in the process. I feel like your guides don't like to communicate with you when you're too in your head, when you're thinking about something too much. They like to communicate with you when your whole energy is concentrated in a physical activity as much as possible. You're probably someone who could have a lot of realizations about your life after you are creative, after you participate in some sort of creative activity or making something. Like, keep in mind, being creative physically doesn't always have to be just painting or sculpting. It can be making a meal. It can be playing an instrument. You're using your body to play an instrument. It can be doing DIYs. Doing up your home. Decorating. Shadow work. Examine your shadow self to understand the parts of you that are wounded and repressed. I feel like your guides almost like it when you do shadow work through your creativity. So maybe when you write poetry about difficult experiences or emotions that you feel are repressed or wounded. Maybe when you paint based on your difficult experiences. Maybe when you sculpt based on your difficult experiences. When you create something. But just in general, your guides do connect to you through your shadow work a lot. And that's when I feel like your guides come in and lighten up your mood as well. It's like this feeling of when you're going through periods where you're doing shadow work and you must go through and face your shadows, your guides like to pop in with a joke or with like a lighthearted feeling to evoke that feeling of like, you know, while you're going through this period of shadow, where you're having to face your shadow, we still want to let you know that, you know, it's not all shadow. There's also light energy at the end of the tunnel. Your guides are humorous in a way. There's something humorous about them, but they're humorous in a very grounded way. They're not chaotic. There's something very solid about your guide's energy. You know what's so funny? We've got alone time, and something about being alone has come through for every single group so far. And that just kind of proves that your guides, when you're connecting to your guides, it's really important to be concentrated on them. It's really important to connect with your whole intention and your whole attention on them. So they prefer it when you're alone as well. Again, both of the other groups that I've done before you, alone time was prevalent. I also feel like for you, your guides like to connect to you when you're in nature. That's really standing out for me, for you especially. Um, okay, let's try and summarize this energy and see what we can come up with. So, how do your guides like to communicate with you? They like to communicate with you when you are very grounded in your physical reality, especially your physical body. Especially if that grounding is connected to some sort of creative activity where your creativity is expanding through the body, through the physical. Your guides like you to be more kind of lost in your body in a good sense when they try and reach out and deliver any sort of messaging or communication to you. They actually are a lot more chatty than a lot of you even realize, or maybe you do realize it. And the more time you spend grounding yourself, whether it be in nature, especially in nature, but whether it be in nature through food, like good home cooked meals, through creative pursuits that engage your whole body, the better your communication with your guides becomes. Your guides also really like to come through when you're doing shadow work. And when you're in your shadowy periods where you're going through a lot of shadowy energy where you have to face your shadow self, your guides almost like to come in with messages of encouragement that are quite humorous. There's something humorous about how your guides interact with you. It's like your guides have a good sense of humor, and even in your darkest kind of place, even when you are going through a period where a lot of shadows must be faced, I think it feels like you can appreciate that your guides have a great sense of humor, and they know how to cheer you up. But I think your guides really prefer to communicate through more physical rather than just mental or just through meditation. They like to get your whole body engaged in order to come through and communicate with you. And so you may find yourself always feeling, not even if you don't like exercising, even if you don't like being very active with your body, you may always find yourself feeling like you need to be more active with your body. It's because that's how your guides communicate with you. That's how they like to send messages into you, into your body. So yeah, that's what I have for you, group number 3. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you did like it, do like, subscribe, and comment, especially with your feedback. I'd love to hear it. But that's the way that your guides are communicating with you right now. So we're going to move on. So let's move on to group number 4, the Rose Quartz group. Let's see, how are your guides communicating with you? Group 4. Currently, how do they like to communicate with you, group 4? Group 4, how do their guides like to communicate with them? 2 of Swords in reverse. Most of the time, your guides... sorry, I'm actually not reading reversals for this reading. I'm only reading upright. Most of the time, your guides actually won't come through until you've made a decision on something. That's what I'm getting. So if you are trying to get help for a decision-making situation with your guides. They will try and help you as much as they can, but it kind of feels like it's almost like they're not allowed. I don't know why it's like they're not allowed to give away too much in order to help you make a decision, because they trust your decision more than they trust their opinion on what the decision should be. Oh, that's very interesting. I almost am getting, it's like before you came to this human experience, you almost had an agreement with your spirit guides that no matter what, your decision will always be more important than what they're thinking about behind the scenes. Like, that's almost the feeling that I'm getting. So they want you to know that the best time to consult them and to get their perspective on something is immediately after you've made a decision, rather than before you've made the decision, because there's not much that they can give you in terms of information before you make a decision, because you're meant to be in the driver's seat. That's very interesting. 4 of Cups. Well, one thing about this as well, you see there's a hand with a cup, and this person is in meditation. They're not really paying attention too much to the cup that's being brought to them. That's why I think they're saying, I almost feel like your guides are kind of saying, like, it doesn't matter what we tell you to do, you're going to do what you want to do anyway. So there might be, it kind of feels like they just know that you're someone, and you may get lost in this kind of feeling like, I wish my guides would tell me what to do. And they're like, we could tell you what to do. We have told you what we think you should do. We have expressed it to you. But you always, no matter what we say, you go with what you want to do anyway. So the best time to consult us is after you've made a decision, an important decision, because then we can give you more of a perspective. Because you're always going to make the decisions that you want to make anyway. We can just guide you after the decision has made. Your guides, out of all the groups here, this is the least intervening group of guides. This is a group of guides that are more observers rather than, almost feels like they're studying you rather than, pushing you along, because in their eyes, they can't really tell you anything or do anything that would benefit you more than what you decide for yourself. For some reason, I'm getting that. Also, I don't know why, but it's 244. And for some reason, that's coming through as an angel number for me, for your group. I haven't seen that in any of the other groups. I haven't picked up on something like that. So 244, maybe for some of you, is an important angel number. If you want to look it up, there might be a message there for you. This is an interesting, it's very like, doesn't matter what we say, doesn't matter how we communicate to you, you will do whatever you want to do anyway. And also, this group of guides don't really like to interfere overall. They're not here to interfere. They're here to be more so like a supportive force, a protective force, because the 4 of Pentacles to me can mean protection sometimes. Their main, I kind of feel a lot of you could be clairsentient, because the energy I'm feeling is that these guides don't like to really communicate with, like, although we did get numbers here, but they don't really like using too much symbolism or too much, messaging. They like to communicate with like almost sensory or feelings. It's like they like to focus all their energy on making you feel safe, let's say. Making you feel comfortable. They're more feeler, and it's funny because we've got the rose quartz, which is a very feeler type of stone, I guess. Seven of Pentacles. They're very careful not to interrupt. That is a big, big energy that's coming through. I wonder, like, we don't know, right? We don't know what could be going on in terms of like energy and spirit guides, but it almost feels like your guides are like, the thing that I'm hearing is we're under strict instructions not to interrupt. And it's kind of like with a plant, you can water it and you can give it good conditions to grow in, and you can observe it, but you can't tell it where to grow. You can't tell it when to bloom. It'll bloom when it's ready to bloom. It'll grow when it's ready to grow. That's the feeling that I'm getting with you and your guides. Your guides more so like to create an environment around you that is comfortable, just like a person might water a plant. A person could talk to the plant, of course they could communicate with the plant, but it's almost like your guides are not supposed to communicate with you too much anyway. It feels like there's, with the Four of Cups, I do feel like they try to sometimes, but maybe it's like when they do communicate, it's more so with feelings rather than like symbolism or words. That's the feeling that I'm picking up on. And maybe that's because I'm noticing he has one of the pentacles is right in front of his heart. Maybe that's where you're misinterpreting your guides, because you're thinking maybe you're looking to get messages from your guides through, literal messages. You want to see a phrase pop up or symbolism pop up. You want to read tarot and get your messages that way. And your guides are like, the best way to communicate with us is through your heart, is through feeling, emotion. That's how we channel things to you. It's not through a phrase or a word. Sometimes that can be, but it's very rare. Your guides operate from the heart space by the looks of it. Interesting. So maybe some of you can try that in meditation, focusing on the emotion that is being delivered to you rather than words or phrases or thoughts. Cold lands. Learn how to keep yourself warm. Abandonment, challenges, and aloofness. And again, with learn how to keep yourself warm, there's a feeling of like, I wonder if your objective in this lifetime is to become very independent. And to find, not hyper independent where you're, completely rejecting any support or help from outside sources. But maybe you came to this life to gain a sense of independence. A very well-defined sense of an independence. And maybe that's why they're under strict instructions to observe, to maintain a healthy environment for you spiritually, and to communicate with feelings through the heart space. But they can't, it's almost like they can't communicate with you with words or phrases or symbolism too much. And maybe the more you grow into your own independence, the more you'll notice these guides are able to communicate with you. That's another feeling that I'm getting. It's almost like the way that you communicate with your guides or communicate with them more, receive more messages from them, is by embracing your individual version of independence. And it's not whoever else's version of independence. It's not what is like John or Mary or whoever, Peter or Jessica, what are they doing in order to be independent? Embracing your own version of independence. That's when they'll come in and be louder and clearer. But until you find it yourself, they almost can't come in and offer that for some reason. That's so interesting. Whoa! That is way too many cards, but thanks for the chaos. So there's something... They don't want you to feel like they've abandoned you, because they haven't, but there's almost an agreement. It's almost like an agreement that they're kind of like, do you remember we had this agreement? Like that's almost the feeling that I'm getting. So maybe there was some sort of an agreement that they do not, we've got universe. They do not intervene. They do not come in unless you are creating your own sense of independence. And that's where independence is so important in decision making. So the more decisions you make independently and with your whole chest, the chest area is being highlighted a lot for me here. So, and something that I'm noticing, see the way her chest is blocked off? He kind of has his hands crossed across his chest. He has his chest blocked off, and his chest is kind of blocked off with his hands as well. There's almost a need, maybe some of you need to work on your heart chakra or something like that, but there is a feeling of feel with your chest rather than try and think with your head when it comes to your spirit guides, and make your decisions with your full chest. Some of you might be like emotional authority in human design. I hope that's right. I'm not an expert on human design, but some of you might be emotional authority on human design. Your group is very chaotic in terms of me even shuffling cards. They're flying everywhere. Halfway point, meet in the middle, compromise, common ground, and reconciliation. I feel like your guides are not meant to lead you. They're meant to meet you in the middle. There's meant to be a half point when they communicate with you. So it's kind of like when you meet them halfway, they're able to provide so much more to you. Yours is very interesting. It's almost like you're leading your guides in this lifetime rather than your guides are leading you. But it feels like that was the agreement. It's kind of like you're meant to be someone who develops a very strong sense of identity, individuality, and a really great skill in decision making in this lifetime. And your guides, they're still a resource and a tool for you to use, but they are more like it's like you make the decision. They can give you advice, you make the decision. But while you're in a state of indecisiveness, or if they notice that it's almost like the more indecisive you feel and the more indecisive you are, the less your guides can help you. That's the feeling that I'm getting. The less your guides can... You're someone who probably benefits from saying to your guides, okay, I have 3 options. I'm really wanting to go with option A. Option B, I'm still quite interested in. Option C, I'm kind of interested in as well. Can you please tell me, keeping in mind that option A is the one that I truly very much want to do, which option do you think I should go with? And, most likely they will always go with the option that you're already wanting to go with. But I feel like if there was a real kind of like something you weren't seeing or something that, you were completely delusional on, they'd go, well, option B, because option A is not good for you. But that would be like almost last minute resort. That would be like a last minute resort that they would tell you to go with an option that you didn't originally want to go with. So the more decisive you are, the more your guides will come out to communicate. And I feel like your guides are there not for the purpose of helping you make decisions in this lifetime. They're like company to you. They're company. They're not, it's almost like they're not meant to be mentors. Of course, they are mentors in many ways, but for your group specifically, they're not meant to be mentors. They are company. They're your family that are here for the ride with you. So very interesting. This is quite different. So let me see. So how do we sum this up? How do your guides communicate with you? They communicate with you when you are in a place where you are being independent and decisive, where you are confident in what you want, when you are developing your sense of confidence, and when you are in a very when you're in a place of patience where you don't feel like you have to rush or you don't have to move too fast. So your guides trust your lead completely. Completely. That's what I'm getting. And they will only ever redirect you if it's like last resort. Absolutely last resort. So that's what I have for you, group number 4. So that's all we have for this reading. If you like this reading, do like, subscribe, and comment, especially with your feedback. I'd love to hear it. But I'm going to leave it here, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.